Happy Monday, everybody. I hope that you're having a delightful time in your offices, in your places of worship, around other people that might be Aggies. Welcome. This is Inside Texas's YouTube channel, Inside Texas Football, and we are so happy that you are here. In fact, we would love for you to join us at InsideTexas.com. I'm just going to go ahead and throw this out straight out the gate here. We're just coming out hot. We want you to join Inside Texas today. We are running a silly season sale. It's $1 for 7 days. Come check us out. We are going into the SEC championship, and we've got many of the contributors of Inside Texas here today. We've got Ian, Drew, RT, and Eric. Drew, I want to start with you. On a scale of 0 to an Aggie that just learned to Velcro their shoes, how smug were you going into your Pilates class today?
Pilates was like never before.
Yeah, all right.
I didn't have to, hide who I was on the
That's
inside.
right. On that reformer.
I wore my burnt orange tights, my burnt orange socks. They were the nice old school, fluffy 80s workout socks.
Yeah.
I brought it today, and I was proud.
Drew was in the post show, and you should check that out. The second clock hits 0, we start broadcasting after these games. And I will say that, Drew, you never wavered in the chat, so good for you. I really want to commend you for that. There was some. Ian was very upset. Let's put it that way. I mean, he was crying the entire time. The emojis were flying, but you never wavered, and I appreciate that, Drew.
I've accepted who we are, so I only wanted to aspire to who I wanted us to be, right? Quinn is who he is. I know our defense is who they are. The only thing I really thought we needed to contend for a national championship this year, which was the goal, is a running game. And so I was excited. The last 2 weeks, we've been intentional about the run game, about getting our backs the ball, not in space, but between the tackles, and they're seeing the game really well right now. So I think Wisner sets the tone, and Blue just comes in. It's almost like he can duplicate, at least from a vision and knowing where to go and seeing the holes and seeing the game cleanly. He really plays well off of Wisner. So I've been saying for weeks that the run game was the one thing that I know Sark needs, Quinn needs to excel and for us to get to that next level. Frankly, I'd accepted who we are up until that point. And so for me, the last 2 weeks have been all great. Even though this week we had issues and turnovers, I mean, we've had those before this season, and the defense stepped up like they have. The one thing that stood out to me more than anything else was just a second week on the road this time, as opposed to last week, running the ball really well, finding the holes, supposed to be a great defense. They know you're running and you're running it well. That was exciting for me. And so I never felt threatened when we're running the ball well and when we're playing great defense. So
some of you may be curious as to who the person is in the corner that looks like he should be in a panel van outside of a playground. That is RT Young. He is a new contributor over at Inside Texas. RT, say hi to the fine people and tell them how happy you were today on a Monday.
I was extremely happy, LC. I think the most satisfying thing about the victory on Saturday night, as it pertains to my Aggie friends and family, was almost just the smugness of not having to say anything. Sorry for the kid background noise, but just the smugness of not having to say anything at all and just basically be like, hey, I'm glad the rivalry's back. But then deep down that you're the one who took it back after 13 years. So that was the most fun part for me. There didn't even need to be any bragging or any, puffing of the chest. I'm sure that'll come later over the summer when things get chippy again. But it was just fun to be like, oh, yeah, did you watch the game? It was cool. And just know in the back of their mind that they're just crumbling inside. So it felt good. It's been a nice 48 hours.
Ian and Eric, I'd love to hear from you guys. Now, Ian, you generally move through the day feeling superior to everybody else anyway, so this was probably not a new sensation for you, but how was that game for you, Ian?
It was good. I was a little nervous on behalf of the Longhorns going in, and then by the end, you're like, of course the Aggies blow it. Of course, the Aggies can't run it in 4th and 1 twice in the game. Of course, they fell apart and got run over. It just felt like the universe was back in balance. We'll fret again next year for a week, and then be reminded that it's just the same thing every time.
Eric, do you know the choreography of the A&M fan base? Are you familiar with it?
No. I think I went one time in high school. To Midnight Yell. I think I recall going there. I was in high school, and I remember, you're around older girls, so you think it's great, but then you realize you're still in College Station. I only sent out one trash talking text, and it was to a buddy of mine that texted a couple of us the night of October 19th at about 8:10 p.m. Saying, Sark pulled Quinn. Wow. That was his way of talking trash. So I sent him the gif of Bradley Cooper humping that guy, where the Texas Longhorn is over Bradley Cooper, and the guy that's getting humped has the A&M on him, and you didn't get a response back. So that was the only trash talk I sent. I love the rivalry. I do. I'm super happy it's back. But I think it tends to get overblown with how angsty people get, and how, there's so much more important in life, but it's fun. I had a lot of fun. I'm glad the game is back. It's just, I reserve my trash talking for the people that really started off first. And other than that, I'm pretty reserved. I like Aggies in real life. Internet Aggies are a little different, but the internet's not real life.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So now we get the opportunity. We're playing Georgia again. This is Sark has made the point, certainly in his presser today, that he feels like this is a different team going into that game. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that, RT? I mean, obviously, there's been 5 games essentially between now and when we'll see them again. But where's your head at on this Monday going into the SEC championship week?
Obviously, there's a little bit of PTSD for what happened on the biggest weekend ever in October, but I think that, Sark and Texas, during his time here, have done really well when their backs have been up against the wall. I think obviously coming off a loss to OU, they've won both times. They defeated every member of the Hateful Eight in the Big 12 the last time they played them. Most of those games, save Kansas State, were coming off a loss. So when they have something to prove, and when he's able to motivate and get the team fired up, they've delivered the past 2 years. I mean, obviously 11-1, 2 seasons in a row proves that. So I think the hateful or the Embrace the Hate tour in the Big 12 has really allowed them to embrace this moment to be just a road juggernaut. I honestly think Quinn's better on the road. I think he's better in neutral environments. I don't think he has to deal with those, the antsy crowds that he gets at DK, himself usually being one of them. So, how will the game go? I'm not really sure yet. I kind of want to see on, Kelvin Banks's health, Jaden Blue's health, some of those things that are yet to be decided. And obviously Georgia's coming off a underwhelming performance to one of their little brothers as well. But I want to see how all that shakes out the rest of the week. But right now, I think we're going to get a motivated and ready Texas team. And I think it's going to be a much different game than what we saw in October.
We're obviously moving into the SEC championship week. This is a massive week. Obviously, it's National Signing Day. Do we still call it that, National Signing Day? I mean, now that
they're still signing financial aid agreements.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. But let's take a quick moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. This is for everybody. Like, now that we finished this regular season, this was our first regular season in the SEC. And if I were to ask you right now, which is what I'm about to do, what are some things that immediately popped to your head about this first season that were memorable for you?
Well, Sark made me correct again. I predicted 11-1 last year and 11-1 this year in the regular season. So I appreciate the man for that. I think it's a better version of last year. This team is a better version of last year's team. And I think it still had the same, mental mindset of, a little bit of a lull in October. The offensive line didn't really start playing together until a little bit later in the season. Last year's run game was bailed out by Jonathan Brooks a lot early on. The offensive line didn't truly find its footing till later in the year. The one game that they lost this year was similar to me to OU, where I think they came in riding a little bit too high. Maybe had read their press clippings a little bit. So I think the team is very similar in some ways. It's just better across the board. The defense is elite. The experience and athleticism upgrades that we hoped that they had in the offseason came to fruition. I think, PK's finally gotten the monkey off his back, even though he's had some pretty decent defenses in the past. Everybody's seen that elite guy that was at Boise State and then Washington. And it's just interesting that Sark's finding a different way to win. It's or rounding the run game into form. The passing attack has not been as consistent as we thought, but that's okay because the defense is there. I think last year, and kind of what RT was talking about, they learned how to win last year. A lot of those games were tight, and I think that's helped them out and become a better team this season.
To me, the only thing that felt different from the Big 12 was the Georgia game. Like the rest of the time, like Arkansas was comparable to a lot of Big 12 games where the other team badly wants to beat you and the game's a little sloppy, but you still win. There weren't like a lot, as everyone has been keen to point out, Texas dodged most of the marquee SEC programs except for like Florida, who was in a bad place when Texas played them, and Georgia. So the teams were different, their strengths were different, but it didn't feel that different overall, if that makes sense. Except the Georgia game, that was different.
I think that Eric wrote about this at the beginning of the year, that Sark is now in his Bobby Bowden, year 4 stage of his roster cycle. Like Bobby Bowden had that famous quote that I'm probably going to butcher, that first you lose big, then you lose small, then you win small, then you win big. I think I nailed it there. But I think that I think Sark is in that win big stage. And I think at the beginning of the year that maybe created the expectations that we're going to win, every game to an inferior opponent, like we won Colorado State, where it's going to be 52-0, and all the games that we play against teams like Michigan, they're all going to be more NFL-like scores, and they're all going to be 31-0. And I obviously, it maybe could have been a little bit more like that had Quinn stayed healthy. And I still think they delivered on that besides the Georgia game. Every single game they've pretty much won by double digits, and they've had chances to pull away and chances to extend the lead, and so they've left meat on the bone. And really, besides the special teams, I do still feel like since the Arkansas game, and really since the Florida game, it's a team that continues to get better, and that has yet to play its best football, so that ability to win big is still there. I think maybe as Texas fans, Ian talks about this before, we're programmed in our mind to think that every Texas team has to be legendary, like Drew's 2005 team was, where, they're beating every opponent until the national championship 56-7. But that's not the way that most championship teams work. They have a lot of 10-point victories that are 17-7 and 20-10. But
RT is in a bunker, so he's hiding from the loss. We may have. Oh, is he back? Hey, you there, RT?
To his point, they've had game control throughout pretty much the entire season outside of Georgia. So like the games have been more lopsided than the scoreboard would indicate. That's been kind of a theme this season. We saw it for sure against A&M. We saw it against Kentucky and Arkansas as well. There haven't been as many Florida blowouts, but the game control has been there.
Yeah. What's stood out to me more than anything is it's really the defensive side of the ball. I think we all expect, even on years like this, for Sark offensively to figure it out or find what works for the roster he has at the time. And for the most part, I feel like he's done that, outside of just some decision making and some bad tips and just some bad breaks, fumbles, and everything else that we're still cleaning up. We still haven't maxed out on offense. I feel good about where we are and where we're going, and at least the trajectory that we've had really since the Georgia game. But beyond that, it's really the defense for me. Last year, I mean, really the first year we couldn't tackle. The second year, we could stop the run, but we couldn't defend the pass. Last year, we were great on defense at stopping the run. And when it really came down to it against an elite passing team, it didn't make, we couldn't make it happen. This year just deepens where we are in that we just won't settle for, whether you call it mediocrity, whether you call it just not just going from year to year without shoring up some of our weaknesses. And so, namely at the edge position and at the DB position. We still have young linebackers right now who are flying around and just playing great. And of course, David Benda got some shine this past game. But at the end of the day, I'm more impressed about how Sark has allowed his defense to evolve and recruit it to where the weaknesses are. Because that's really where we've been. We've been a defensive team this year. It's been anchored by the defense, but I also think wins like the one we most recently have are huge, because there are guys who are going to leave this program, but there are guys who are going to be here next year. They're going to have gone into that environment. They're going to carry the mentality, the composure, and everything that they've gained from this season into next year, in the locker room and in the offseason and everything else. And so what I like to see is who are going to be the leaders who are going to carry the lessons from this year over into next year. And I know we still have some ball to play. I think there's been a lot that's been done this year. And then where I'm most proud is where our defense has made a name for itself on a team that's led by an offensive coach. And I think that's going to continue to carry over from a cultural perspective. And I expect it to carry over as we go into this game this week and into the playoffs.
I want to thank Peyton here for our super chat. Please throw those in. It really does help Ian buy his minivan. What Peyton is saying here is Sark is 34-14 through 4 years. Great. Half of those losses came in the first year, and half of this year's were followed up with a play this way next week or we lose. And I think what Peyton is talking about here is exactly what Drew is talking about. And that's the culture aspect, right? Now the proof is in the pudding. He can demonstrate to people like, look, if you play to this standard, it is a recipe for success. I want to talk a little bit more about the transition into the SEC, talk a little bit more about what Sark had to say today. I thought there were a few things in there that were pretty telling on where his mindset is. But before we do that, let's hear about a kitchen and bath company that's going to do some remodels.
This video is brought to you by Luxe Kitchen and Bath. Luxe has been offering high-end kitchen and bathroom remodels for 3 generations throughout the greater Austin area. With 5-star review after 5-star review on Google and Facebook, and an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, you can put your faith in Luxe Kitchen and Bath's award-winning designers and skilled craftspeople to bring to life that dream vision of your special home. But that's not all. Luxe's all-star team provides full remodels, large additions, and even commercial build-outs as well. So call Luxe Kitchen and Bath at 833-358-LUXE today. Or visit luxekitchenbath.com to discover where quality meets luxury and begin the process of transforming your home. Get a free quote today by calling 833-358-LUXE. That's L-U-X-E. Or by visiting luxekitchenbath.com. Link in the description.
I know you talked about this, Drew. I'm curious what the other guys think about it. I assumed at the beginning of this year when we moved to the SEC that sure I would be watching more SEC games, but I was convinced that I would also follow the Big 12 and see what the big difference was there. And I barely watched any Big 12 games. I don't know. Did you guys, how was that for you? Did you find yourself checking in on your ex-girlfriend, or were you just all about what's going on today?
No, I had more eyes for South Carolina this year than I did for Kansas State, which I did not see happening. I haven't watched I haven't watched hardly any Big 12 this entire season. There hasn't been a reason to, and I thought for sure I would, especially if they came on at peculiar times, Thursday night or Friday night. But I haven't watched hardly any.
I have not watched a ton either. You know what makes it harder too is that it sucks now that they have so many teams. It's not a strength. Like following the league and who's on top and how things are going to shake out is like extremely confusing. Many of the teams don't play each other. Many of the top teams don't play each other. I went into it a few times just to figure out the standings and like, oh, who's going to end up in the playoff hunt. And it was just it's just not that great. It's really diluted. The round robin was a million times better. And you would think that because they have a playoff berth, you'd still have a reason to follow the league. The style of play in that league is always fun, but the stakes are just not good. And so I did not watch very much either.
That's not good for them if we're not watching.
Yeah.
No. I mean,
It's
not
a
just
good
the
leading
Nielsen
indicator.
ratings alone are taking a massive hit. Well, what happens if we go into this? This is a question that was started by, I'm assuming, Eric, but it depends on what part of the college football playoff bracket we get slotted into. This is the big discussion point about a lot of people are curious about what happens for those that don't get that automatic bye. What made you want to highlight this, Eric?
I didn't think I highlighted that at all. If I
Okay,
did,
great.
it was an
Well, that's
accident.
good. That's just some solid YouTube producing there by LC. That's some quality work. All right, great. Moving on to today's big news. Well, this week's big news is going to be that recruiting, and I know that you've been talking about this till you've been blue in the face, Eric. But can you bring the people that are hanging from the curtains right now down a little bit and let them know that this is going to be a buck wild ride and they just need to hold on and breathe?
Well, I do think it's going to be a wild ride. I'm not exactly sure. There's a lot of irons in the fire. They're trying to go for a big flourish. It's been building up for this for a while. They've been laying the groundwork for the last couple months. They don't want to waste their time recruiting. And by that, I mean, they don't want to spend all this time in September and October during the heat of the season where the season takes priority and get guys committed and then realize it's still, November, you still have to fight to keep them committed, or it's December and you're still fighting for them. So there's a lot of guys that they're hoping to win late, and that's where we are. Now it's late. There's still a lot of needs left. They could still take 2 DBs, 2 linebackers, 2 defensive tackles, a couple guys on offense. That's not saying that they're all going to fill all those needs, of course, but that's just where their mind's at, and that's they're still targeting at least 10 guys. Now, again, I don't know how it's going to shake out. Again, the NIL era is almost impossible. You can know a lot on the Texas side, which, Inside Texas does know a lot on the Texas side, but it's hard to know what's going on the Georgia side. It's hard to know what's going on the Alabama side or the LSU side. So, or even the A&M side. And so a lot of times we're working with imperfect information. Our information is good, but we're not getting the whole view. So right now I expect them to land a couple good players, very good players. I predicted a flip. I didn't name them. It's delicate talking about flips because all you do is alert the other school. So we're not going to name them. But I don't know exactly how it's going to shake out, but we'll be watching that Justice Terry announcement Friday morning with interest. Texas will be making that one interesting. And then a number of others. They're in it with at least 4 or 5 guys that are at least rated 5-star by one of the services.
There was a quality Mac Brown move, I thought, today in the presser by Sark when he did some very sly press conference recruiting where he was talking about, he can't call a kid for 2 hours today because he's prepping for the SEC championship game. And I'm sorry, we can't give you that level of attention that other schools might because this is a championship level program. That was very reminiscent of a Mac Brown type thing to do there, Drew. I don't know if you caught that.
It was just true. I mean, I'm sure that's exactly what he's telling players. It's like, hey, you wouldn't want to come here if we weren't out here winning games and doing the things it takes to win games. If we lose this weekend, you may decide you don't want to come here, or you may decide you made a bad choice. So we're going to make sure we do the things we have to do that represent everything you want to be a part of. So, yeah, it makes sense to me. I think Sark and that staff, they do a great job of spending time all throughout the year, not just an intense focus in 1 week or 1 month. They spend time all throughout the year just building connections and staying connected. And the players who value that and the players who go through the season seeing the proof that all of that brings, as the season unfolds, they'll be on board. And it sounds like we're going to have some chances at some big fish here at the end. So, his approach has worked. There's no reason to doubt it now.
Ian and RT, You and I had the opportunity this last weekend to text about Moana 2 and our thoughts on that. I don't want to subject the people to that, so let's talk about Gooseby. What were your thoughts on that? Because this guy stepped up and he absolutely, I mean, the dude ate. What were your thoughts of him coming in, and what does that portend for the future at that position?
I mean, the only time I was nervous about the game was right after Kelvin Banks went out. That was really the only time where I was like, could we actually lose this game to the Aggies? Because this guy really, more than anybody else, maybe even more than Quinn, is the dude that I think about when I think about Sark's tenure so far in Austin. And so for me to not think about the fact that Kelvin Banks wasn't playing the rest of the game is a testament to Trevor Gooseby and, you know, the big humans movement that started way back in the day and that loss to Fayetteville and is, you know, gone through Kelvin Banks and DJ Campbell and has continued to what looks like we're going to have great tackles in the future. So I was freaking pumped. And the thing that I wrote yesterday, the reheat, he was who I gave horns up on offense for, because I mean, I just think to go against those big physical edges like Nick Scourton, and, you know, really the only time you noticed him from a negative perspective was on that drive with the pick six when he jumped off sides when Arch was in or false start, you know. So I think he played great. I'm really excited for that dude. And he's the type of guy who, you know, he's like a ball of clay. He's going to continue to be molded into like just an absolute freak. So
he did have one other moment right after the offsides. They were calling a GT counterplay that was supposed to go to his side, but then he pulled and ran into the other puller on his way, and Arch got tackled for a loss. I actually don't know if that's why Arch got tackled for a loss. It looks like the Aggies run blitzed it and kind of knew it was going to be an Arch run. But two mistakes in a row in that atmosphere, and then a pretty clean game otherwise and a lot of physical run blocking. That's great. I think everyone feels better about left tackle next year at the very least.
This is want to go to Huff Text here. Did anyone really believe once the Aggie game was for something, the trip to the SEC title game, that the Aggies were going to win? No way. I mean, look, I want to address this. And again, thank you, Mike, or thank you, Huff Text, for helping us out there. Again, I think it's Honda Days, isn't it? Or is it Toyotathon? I can't remember.
Did you think that was Mike Huff?
No, yeah, I thought it was Michael Huff. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was Michael Huff. And look, Huff Text, I'm sorry, please don't be offended. I just was very excited there for a second. We were nervous. I was nervous. Maybe Drew wasn't. I mean, Drew was pretty locked in all week. There was no wavering in his point. But I would say, based on, if you watched the roundtable last week, there was some concern on how that game would go.
Yeah, well, we didn't know how healthy Quinn was or if he'd be able to play through the ankle. And I think that was the biggest issue. I did, on this show or one of our shows, elucidate the theory that A&M is incapable of winning them when there are real stakes, and that we should almost be rooting for them to beat Auburn to ensure that they'd be playing for an SEC championship berth when they played Texas. They ended up getting a backdoor opportunity anyway. But so I totally agree with that. But we certainly were a little bit nervous because of, you know, Quinn's in a boot and all that.
Well, speaking of Quinn in the boot, do we think we're going to see more of the Arch package moving forward now that that was displayed?
The 18-wheeler with Tyrone Swoops walked so the 16-wheeler could run, in my opinion.
Right.
So
they ran 3 different plays with it against A&M. So if they've repped Arch in 3 different concepts in that quarterback run concepts, it tells you that there's a lot of volume underneath. So I think they'll mix it in unless it goes terribly wrong, and then they'll show it.
You can also just put them out there and call it regular play.
It's also true.
Right. I mean, I figured if he plays this week in any capacity, let's just run Haynes Keene's offense, and see how that goes. They didn't stop that for 4 quarters. Man, those guys deserve to win. Haynes Keene gave it everything he had, but yeah, I mean, that's the only context I see under which it makes sense. Other than that, I think it got pretty predictable once we kind of knew what he was coming into the game for. So I'd rather not see it. I'd rather us be able to do whatever we need to do without him coming in on plays that at least appear to be pretty straightforward with what they are designed to do. But hey, I trust Sark. If he rolls it out, I do trust it's going to be a look that they don't expect. It can be a curveball they don't expect, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of that prepared for this week.
I was really kind of hoping that, if he did come out in the second half, we might see some play action and just Arch bombing it down the field. I was a little sad we didn't see that.
You know what they can do, though?
We'll get more than that for you to complain about next year.
That was not a complaint. That's just
We're all going to get more than enough. Ian's favorite player is Arch Manning, and next year it'll be his least favorite.
Oh, all right.
You know what they've set up is they can run a fake quarterback power like they showed against A&M, but then just have Arch drop back and bomb a post over the top. Like that's if they don't do that against somebody in the next few games, that'll surprise me. You put him in, especially if you're like in midfield, and it's like 3rd and 1, 4th and 1. 4th and 1's even better. You put an Arch in, fake quarterback power, then drop back out like Cam Newton, and somebody's going to be wide open.
I do think that adds layers of just things for people to prepare for. It's one thing to prepare for an offense conceptually or just schematically. It's a completely different thing when you have to prepare for the athleticism and everything else that comes with preparing for the offense. I think Arch coming in creates a true run-pass threat where people are going to assume run. It gives you some options in the pass game that he can execute on. So I'd like to see that too. I do feel like this week, I'd rather not toy around wasting plays on things that may or may not work. I'd rather go with what we know is we can't waste plays against Georgia.
Right.
Can't waste that.
If Georgia's holding them to 29 yards rushing again, they're going to have to do something. But I don't think it's going to come to that.
I don't think so either.
This is midfield, fake power, bomb.
This is. I'm going to throw this question. Obviously, this is a question more geared toward Eric, but Ian, as you are our resident OU fan, please feel free to jump in here. But what are your thoughts on this, Eric? Any chance OU goes after Micah Hudson?
I hope so. Imagine. I mean, if they feel like they're a wide receiver away rather than 3 wide receivers away, which they could probably get for the same price, go for it. A&M will probably be active there. Maybe Oregon takes a shot. I don't know. Oregon likes those guys that are sort of reclamations that are talented. But I don't know. That's a weird question. The last thing Texas fans should be worried about right now is Oklahoma. I know it's kind of heretical to say, but they've got a lot bigger problems than wide receiver. They're basically in Charlie Strong's final year where he had to go get Sterling Gilbert to save the day, which obviously didn't work. So I don't know. It would be another misallocation of funds to go get Micah Hudson to me. Maybe others think different. I think there's plenty of players that'll be available in the portal that present a much higher floor for that team. And like I said, they've got bigger problems to fill than wide receiver.
He doesn't really profile, in my opinion, to the kind of guy that Venables has gone after in the portal either. They've gone after Deion Burks types. I would think that they grab whoever the, wide receiver from the, Purdue was 0-10 in the Big Ten this year. That's where Deion Burks was from. It feels like they've grabbed more people like that as opposed to dudes who were 5 stars after their freshman year and didn't pan out. He seems more like the type that would end up at Oregon or A&M to me.
Yeah, if Venables grabs him, that may be an indicator that they're getting kind of desperate.
Yeah, because that would really be a change of ways from what he's done in the past.
It's a fair point. Yeah. I want to we want to get to your questions. There's some really good ones in here, but before we do, we want to hear if or let you know about some fiduciary planning.
I'm just going to say, guys, you probably need a fiduciary financial advisor, and I've got the guy for you. His name is David McClellan with Forum Financial. He works broadly and deeply with his clients as a financial life coach, and he should know something about coaching because he won several national championships as a swimmer for the University of Texas. He specializes in financial planning and has contributed numerous articles to Kiplinger on the topic of retirement tax bombs. So contact David today to be your fiduciary financial planner and schedule a 1-hour consultation to assess your financial situations. The free consultation is available, so just give him a call. The number is 312-933-8823. That's 312-933-8823. His email is also in the description below.
We're going to go to Wayne Wilson here, and I want to move this over a little bit to the Georgia game as we move forward. Wayne is asking or stating that the biggest difference between last year and this year is the secondary. Sark, being an offensive mind, has beat the odds to produce an elite defense. And obviously, Drew, you've got some insight here. I'm curious, moving into this Georgia game, the secondary, the defense writ large is playing obviously at an elite level. How do you think the secondary is going to be challenged? And this is obviously for the whole group here. And how do you think what is the formula for their success?
I think the one thing we didn't get, I know we're talking about secondary, but it'd be great to get more pressure on the quarterback this week. I think pressure makes our secondary that much better. But the thing that also helps us out with Georgia is they have some self-inflicted issues. They drop the ball often. So I think we've seen time and time again that our guys can make plays on the ball. They can be in a position or even bait quarterbacks into making some bad decisions and going up and making the play. So, I mean, that's really them just doing what they continue to do. I think our DBs will continue to do what they've done. Andrew Makuba being healthy is great. Michael Taft is flying around. Jelani McDonald is doing his thing. Barron didn't get tested as much this past week, but we know what he can do. I mean, we're solid across the board. What I would like to see this week is our defensive line just create some more pressure and do some things to just get more pressure on the quarterback and stress out Carson Beck a bit more than it did the last time around. I think our DBs played well in spite of that. I'd love to see what they can do if we're actually able to bring that level of pressure and onto the quarterback.
Georgia's really weird this year because their receivers are not very good. So I think there's an opportunity. I'm curious if PK will take advantage to really play a lot of man coverage and less zone than they've been playing in the last few weeks, and just kind of load the safeties up in the middle of the field on the tight ends and the running game, even the running backs in the passing game. That's where all their best receivers are at Georgia this year. And they've not leaned into it very well, but you want to be prepared in case they do in this game. I don't think Georgia, unless Texas completely wets the bed on offense again, I don't think Georgia can beat them with a high volume passing game to the receivers. I just don't think they're good enough. So I think the opportunity is Texas secondary could potentially dominate this game if they're given a chance to smother, if they're given a chance to just man up the receivers, don't give them a lot of help outside, and use your safeties to smother everything else.
We got a question here from John A. And this is something that you've been talking about, Ian, but I'll throw this out to the group. Is Kern our punter for the future, or do we need to have an open competition with the transfer portal punter? What are your thoughts there, guys?
I'm not out on Kern. I need to know more about what effects of the injury he's having, but I wouldn't be surprised by a transfer portal punter. There's going to be a good one in the portal. I know that for sure, and we'll see if Texas does anything. But they're not going into next season with the same special teams that they're having this season. It's kind of a one-off with Jeff Banks. He's one of the most proven special teams coaches in the year. We've gone into depth on Inside Texas about, the issues that they've had. I expect punter to be addressed either by Kern if his issues this year are due to injury. But if not, and it's just, he doesn't have the leg strength that they thought he did, then they'll bring somebody in.
Dicker, the kicker, was Dixon. Dixon was not very good as a freshman. Like he was erratic. He would shank one, but then he'd kick one 65 yards. We're not seeing
that's true.
We're not seeing that. That's what I said this year. That would the inconsistency be from the boomer bust that we saw with Dixon, or would it be, he's kicking 40-yarders, or and it's not the end of the world, but next year the defense is not going to be as good as it is this year, and field position is going to matter even more. And so they're going to have to put a prior priority on these, hidden yards that you get in special teams.
I'd say go to the portal, find somebody, create competition. Don't settle. You don't do it at any other position, so why settle for it at punter? If Kern is going to get better, I would like to assume that competition will be what makes that happen, not hope, not an offseason, not strengthening, not anything else. We've seen enough this year where I think competition is warranted, and I think if it was any other position, we do the exact same thing. So I expect Sark to go find a way.
Yep.
Do you I know we're jumping around a lot here, guys, just trying to get to these questions. And this is from Daniel Moore. And how does Sark assist Quinn from making bad decisions in the absolute worst times of the game? We've talked about Quinn a lot. Quinn is going to Quinn. But I'm curious what your thoughts are on this.
That's an Ian. Ian, you had a good observation today about that Quinn fumble.
Oh, the fumble. Sark didn't do him any favors on the fumble.
Exactly. Sark has to do himself some favors first, right?
Yeah, that was like a triple option play that Quinn went like 1, 2, and then his third read was to run it himself. And that was the right read. And so Quinn's like, okay. And then he got, chased down from behind and stripped. Probably his ball security could have been better. Whatever.
Definitely.
That's a bad spot to be in. He's playing on a freaking brace. Why are they calling zone read? Another thing Sark can do is give Trey Weisner the ball 33 times.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty helpful. Do that. Maybe don't call the zone read play for Quinn, and I think we're 90% of the way there.
Right.
I just think what's the worst time of the game, right? Like we lost to OU last year, and Quinn's 2 interceptions were early in the game, but he played almost one of the best games he's ever played in his career against OU last year. Against Washington, he played a great game, a really good game. When you think about the losses, a lot of it is just anomalies when it comes to how extreme Quinn's play impacted the actual result of the game. But at the end of the day, look at the schedule. Look at the wins. Look at what Quinn has done. Look what the offense has done. Look what the team has done. Sometimes in spite of Quinn, you can say, but at the end of the day, Quinn has been linchpin in everything that we've been able to do, and that's been really heavily supplemented by a healthy run game. And I think Quinn has that now. We'll see if we can continue to run with that, but Sark knows what issues are his issues. Sark knows when the issues are the offensive line or the players around Quinn. And then there's just some stuff that Quinn is going to do or put himself at risk of doing. He made some risky throws that completed this past week, a couple to Gunnar Hill. So, I mean, there's just some plays that are wild plays that we don't think back, like how risky it is when they succeed. But at the end of the day, this is a team sport. It appears this team has that mentality to where everyone is accountable for each other, so that whenever Quinn does make a mistake or anyone else makes a mistake, it's everyone takes ownership of it. And I don't think when we watch the game, we see it so isolated and in Quinn's hands. But as Ian just pointed out, like there's some things Sark can do. There's some things the players around Quinn can do to put him in a better position to make the right decision or stay out of trouble. And Quinn, of course, has to take ownership of that. But at the end of the day, I think we're completely undervaluing what Quinn has done consistently over this 2-year stretch. And so I'm happy he's healthy. I'm happy he's looking good in spite of an ankle injury. I'm looking forward to this week. Maybe he can perform and shut some people up.
I want to. We're going to combine two of your comments here, just because we can do that. I'm going to start with Bruce 7, and he's just giving some love where love is due, and that's 45. Vernon Broughton was a monster, and I want to talk about what kind of a monster he was. And we'll go to URT, but we'll do that in conjunction with this from AR. Again, thank you for the super chat. Honda days are happening now. UGA was so keyed in on our motions and shifts during the 10-9 game. How do you think Sark would address that?
I mean, I think during the first Georgia game, we weren't running the ball well at all. And I think we weren't getting a push on the offensive line. And I think that, and Quinn was also still clearly banged up. And I think we had way less of the playbook at our disposal than we were, aware of at all. So I think the fact that we are now getting push in the run game, hopefully Banks being healthy and playing in Atlanta will help that, but that's going to open up a lot more. And going back to what Drew said a second ago, I loved the almost picked ball by Bryce Anderson that Quinn threw to Gunnar Helm on Saturday night, because one of the biggest ways that I wanted to see Quinn grow going into the season after last year was making more risky throws. And, I felt like last year he was good, he was solid, but man, you think about that Washington game, even though he played really good, like I feel like he was still being risk averse when we're on the 12-yard line at the end of the game. And I do think obviously the injury has hampered some of his ability to make some of the throws this year, but I think he has been willing to take more risks, willing to thread the needle a little bit more. And I think that's a big, that has been a big side of growth in him that I think has gone a little bit under the radar this year.
Let's go back to this, because I think this is important. I think we need to give some love to our Vernon Broughton. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Eric. But Bruce 7 again, 45. Vernon Broughton was a monster. How much money do you think he earned in that game, Eric?
Quite a bit. That's a real SEC opponent. And he's flashing his quickness. He's got a good change of direction for his size. His movement skills at his size are not super common. And then on top of it, he's gotten a lot better at the point of attack than he was in previous years. He's gotten better every year. But this is the first year he's actually been good at the point of attack. Last year, you could see a noticeable improvement from the year prior. But he's put it all together. And I think Wayne Watson is talking about Kenny Baker, their defensive line coach. Broughton came in. Broughton in August when they had a player availability. Both Broughton and Collins were singing Kenny Baker's praises as far as from a technical standpoint. I think Bo Davis was more of a motivator. They feel like they've gotten more out of Baker, technically speaking, than they did in years prior. And I think that's shown up a few times in hand placement. Some of the things, I think they've run tighter stunts than they had in the past as well. But yeah, Broughton, it was kind of only a matter of time. I've been singing his praises since high school. Just an uncommon combination of size and movement skills. And then, he's got a good motor too. And he was making plays that, he didn't get credited for as well, that, just he was getting in the backfield and being a good teammate, making it easier for players around him to make the play.
Broughton stuffed that 4th and goal. That was primarily Vernon on that. If the hole had been there, the running back goes, maybe Burke still hits him because Burke came so free, but probably the back is at least falling forward and running forward. But
yep.
A lot of guys beat their blocks on that play, but Broughton was one of the more notable and key ones.
Yeah, I can't wait to see Broughton and Collins versus Georgia this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. With Broughton, and you saw it with Sorrell, you saw it throughout this game. And I think last year we saw it with Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, but I feel like we only saw it with Tavondre Sweat and Byron Murphy, is them just being able to engage, separate, and get off blocks. It feels like everyone's able to two-gap. I mean, there are certain plays where everyone has a responsibility, and that maybe spill everything or get under everything. But there are several times where Sorrell's just holding the guy up, sheds them, and gets off. Broughton, he just plays leverage. He's not necessarily trying to bull rush you, but he'll pick a side, get you off balance, and go to the other side. He'll pick a side, get you leaning that way. I mean, he'll shed you in the direction you're going. Like, he does a really good job of being a smart player, playing with leverage. He's not just trying to run down the middle of you in the same way that guys did last year. I think that's what I've seen Kenny Baker teach and coach. That's probably been a more tangible difference than last year, because you can tell when a coach is coaching as a motivator or someone who's just going to try to fire you up, just play harder, go harder. That's not always a solution for every player. And when your two leading guys are playing in that way and you're just coaching the other guys behind them the same way, they're not maximizing what their strengths are. And so I do think the standard should be go harder regardless of who's in the game.
Right.
At the end of the day, you need the technical tools, the coaching specific to your skill set to be able to take advantage of that. And there were several times this week where I just saw Vernon you want to be able to give this guy a one-on-one against a guard, or just any type of indecisive situation where maybe there's a guard tackle combo block. He will find that crease to create penetration. And so that's just it was fun to see him go out and play. I know Eric has been high on him since the recruiting days. And since day one, I'm not going to say I've been a skeptic, but definitely knew there was a longer development curve, really until he found out not only the position he wanted to play or could play best, but also had the mentality to play that position in a way that fit his skill set. So I think this year he knows how to play bull rush. He knows how to get after it when he needs to, but he also knows how to use his athleticism, his technique, his smarts, and leverage in a way that, I mean, he's really maximizing himself right now. So I'm really excited for him.
I hope that can be Bledsoe next year. As good an athlete as he is, it'd be really something if they could figure that out for next year.
Yes, man. I'm already getting asked about Bledsoe. I was asked about him earlier today, just with everybody knows that Collins and Broughton are leaving. I just, that's a tough guy to bet on. I knew Vernon pretty well coming out of high school. I didn't think it would take this time for Vernon to put it together, but also, he wasn't really forced to put it together because there was an assembly line in front of him. This year he was forced to put it together, and also he's incentivized to put it together with, NFL money in front of him. But hopefully Bledsoe has that same motivation, because he's certainly an NFL athlete. He's a physical guy for his size. He's not the biggest guy out there, but he's got all the tools. He's, just got to get a lot more consistent.
What do you see in terms of, let's just take it to the other defensive side of the other defense, which is going to be Georgia's defense. Have we demonstrated anything different, Ian, in the last 5 games that would suggest that Georgia just shouldn't send the house on every play to get into to disrupt Quinn?
Well, Texas is a very difficult team to blitz because so much of the offense is lateral passing. So like if you're blitzing and you're pulling a guy out of the secondary, and then this play is a swing screen to the running back. So maybe like the linebacker that would primarily be on the running back is blitzing. And then whoever's replacing him is like moving there from somewhere else and then realizing he's got the running back, and the running back is out wide behind blocks. Sark has a gazillion really good blitzes, blitz beating screens, tunnel screens, tight end screens, misdirection screens. There's a reason that teams don't just blitz Quinn all the time. And it's because it's just hard to blitz this offense in general. What they got into trouble with was all the passing downs they were in against Georgia last time. So if you have Texas in 2nd and 8, 3rd and 7, and you've got athletes like Georgia has where you think you can usually corral the screen, then now it's open season. So I think it's more of a first down question. If Texas gets into a lot of passing downs against Georgia, it may not go as badly as it did last time, but it's probably not going to go well. It's all about, can they run the ball, or can they actually hit anything on first down?
I want to get to Wayne Watson's question here on Vasic, because I think that's there's a lot of obviously talented recruits that we've had in the last few years that we haven't necessarily heard from. Vernon Broughton is a good example of the development curve of some of these people. But before we get to that, I want to address all of our friends over at Twitter. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate you joining us. Please join us on the YouTube channel. There are many shows that we don't do live that has a lot of great content that will really highlight these games for you and give you a deeper understanding of what is happening. I'm thinking about the deep dive. I'm thinking about some of our roundtables and certainly some of the inside the program. So please do join us there. And obviously join us at InsideTexas.com. We are running that, what we like to call a silly season special, because it's getting buck wild, guys. We've got recruiting, we've got signing day, we've got the SEC championship. It's all happening. You're going to get a whole week of it for $1 American. Let's talk about Vasic. So we haven't heard much from him, Eric, and I want to throw this over to you. Do you have an update on him? Give the fine people an idea of what's happening with this pass rusher?
Yeah, it's just a situation of, if he's on the field, you have to take somebody off. And who are you going to take off? You got a lot of experience in front of him, got a lot of talent in front of him. Colin Simmons, you want Colin Simmons on the field more, not less. You want more on the field, more, not less too, especially when you're playing a lot of these mobile quarterbacks that he's really well-schooled and disciplined on defending. Vasic's time is going to come, and Vasic's going to be a very, very, very good Longhorn. He's got as much upside as any edge at Texas outside of Colin Simmons. He's a first-round talent, but he's got to wait his turnaround. These guys that are experienced, he missed a lot of time as a freshman. Pretty much he missed his freshman year. But his time will come. He's going to be very good. He'll play a lot next year. You can bank on it.
He'll probably be in Ethan Burke's role with Ethan Burke and Barron Sorrell's role next year, right?
Yeah, I imagine he's got an amazing build. He's only going to keep putting on weight. Eventually he'll be 275 pounds, maybe even more. So yeah, you're looking at a jack. I could see him and Burke as jacks next year, replacing Barron Sorrell. Lance Jackson will be tough to keep on the field. Don't forget about Zena Umeozulu, that kid's going to be a player too. They've done a fantastic job of restocking the edge room in the last couple of years. But Vasic has a ton of upside. They love him. He's just got to stay healthy and man, keep hitting leg day, keep working, and his time will come.
Drew, this is a question. It's more of a statement, and I'm just curious if this had. I think I know the answer from you, but the icy whites are badass. Did you guys feel a little different in the icy whites? I mean, you guys are in the icy whites. You feel like this is just your invincible. What kind of superpowers do those things possess?
It wasn't really a big deal to us. It's like I wouldn't say it's a new thing.
I knew he was going to crush you. I knew he was going to take your soul.
I know.
I know it was a new thing. It was a big deal for us was when, I'm just going to say, Vince, there was a group of people who convinced Mac to let us wear black cleats. We were just happy to wear black cleats. We wore the same white cleats to practice everywhere else. We just wanted to switch it up. So when we got to wear black cleats, that was a big deal. But icy whites, road games, I never thought about it. I never even it never was a big deal. Now fans love it. I think this team in particular, I mean, what they've won 10, 11 games straight on the road. It's become a theme. It's become something they take pride in. Why not? Why not lean into it? Why not want to wear your icy whites on the road? You're on the road anyway. So yeah, it wasn't a big deal to us per se. But yeah, we definitely wanted to. So we got to wear black cleats. It was fun.
All right, it's a big deal to me because
we got Skull Brother on, who is the most fan on the board. I knew he was going to take this hard.
Yeah, I'm superstitious, as Eric knows. So I think I've seen us beat OU 4 times in person, which I don't have a great record at OU. But the only times I've seen us win, we've been wearing white jerseys. And so even now, like I almost don't want to go to the burnt orange jersey years, to the Red River Shootout. And when I think about losses in my mind, it could even be games like last year in the Sugar Bowl where we were actually wearing the icy whites, but in my mind, we were wearing burnt orange jerseys at the Sugar Bowl last year against Washington. So yes, I think it's a huge deal. I think it's all that matters, really.
So for those of you that don't know, Texas, as being the higher seed, is the home team, and as such, they get to choose their jerseys. They have chosen the away icy whites because, in spite of what a reliable source in Drew, who actually played the game at Texas, says, they are very important.
20 years ago, 25 years ago.
Well, OU did this. I don't know if y'all remember. In 2018, the Big 12 championship, we beat OU that year. That was the Kyler Murray take the loss from Sam Ehlinger with some expletives attached year. And we were wearing icy whites at the Cotton Bowl, but OU was the home team, and they picked some random throwback OU jersey so that was actually white. So we weren't able to wear the icy whites, and we were the away team and wore burnt orange. So, not to mimic too many things that the Sooners do, but obviously they didn't feel comfortable in their crimson and cream that year and switched it up, and it worked. So
we need to run the ball this week. We need to play great defense. We need to not turn over the ball. I don't care what uniform we wear.
If they're wearing white, though, it's probably better chance.
It'd be better
on TV.
Harder to see.
I'm not saying we don't do those things. I'm just saying we do them in icy whites.
Even better. If it makes
there we go. All right.
If it gets more subscribers inside Texas, let's bring it. Let's do icy whites. Let's do it.
InsideTexas.com, $1 for 7 days. I didn't hear from you, Ian. What are your thoughts on the icy whites?
Oh God, Ian in fashion.
Ian seems like a black jersey guy. He wants us to wear the black jerseys.
No, I hate never. I love the whites.